Hello everybody, welcome to this instruction video. In this video I'd like to show you how to do part 12 of the Crochet Along Last Dance on the Beach by Scheepjes. In part 12 we're going to be making the border around our blanket, and this is also the last part in this series, so after this you've completed your blanket. Depending on which kit you either have the Color Crafter or the Merino Soft yarn. Just check your pattern for exactly which color you need this week. It will in essence be the color that you have the most of in your kit. Just a few words on hook size for this week. To make a long story short, you need to go up a few hook sizes because the stitches that we're making, there are a lot of chain stitches in this border and they tend to pull your work together, and to prevent that we need to go up a few hook sizes. So work anything from a 5, 5.5 or even 6 millimeter crochet hook depending on what your personal tension is. I worked my Color Crafter blanket with a 5.5 millimeter hook, and my Merino Soft I even worked with a 6 millimeter hook. This is because these stitches tend to pull if you don't go up a hook size. As a reference, I did my gauge swatch for my Color Crafter on a 4.5 millimeters, so this is going up 2 full hook sizes to the 5.5, and the same holds for the Merino Softs. So I went up 2 hook sizes. So this is just a tip to prevent your blanket from pulling, because then it won't lie flat and it'll do this, and you don't want that. You want a nice and flat edge, because that will give the most beautiful end result. So make a long story short, please go up a few hook sizes. I'll take you step by step through the rounds that make up the border. I'll show you the first 4 rounds, and after that it's just a repeat of rounds 3 and 4. And after every round you're going to be turning your blanket, so keep being aware of that every round you're turning your blanket the other way, that you don't do everything on the same side facing. So I'll take you step through these rounds. I want to thank you for watching, and I hope it's a useful video for you. For the first round of the border, I'm going to start in the corner stitch. I still have it marked here, so that's center stitch of the 3 double crochets you have in one position. I'm going to start in that corner stitch. I'm going to attach our yarn with a slip stitch. Just going to remove the hook, because on this corner stitch you only want the back loop, so that's very important. Only take the back loop of that corner stitch, attach your yarn with a slip stitch. Now I'm going to do a chain 1. This does not count as a stitch, this chain 1. And in the same position I'm going to do a double crochet. There we go. And that's 1/2 of the corner. When we come round we're going to do the other half. Now we can start on the first edge. And what's important here is that everything we're doing, we're going to be working in the back loops of these double crochets we have here. We're starting making a chain 1, skipping the next stitch. It's going to be this stitch, and then in the next stitch, the stitch after, and the back loop, you work a double crochet. Chain 1, skip a stitch, and then the next in the back loop work a double crochet. Chain 1, skip a stitch, and in the back loop of the stitch following work a double crochet. And that in essence you're going to do all the way around. Chain 1, skip a stitch, and work a double crochet. And when you get to the joining lines, you're just going to do something slightly different. But in essence, this here is what your first round looks like. What's important is that you have the correct number of stitches along each edge. And if you have too many stitches or too few stitches, your border could wobble. So what happens if you have too many stitches, or you have too few, or somehow things just don't work out quite right? What you can do is, for example, I'm doing a chain 1, is instead of skipping 1 stitch, I can skip 2 stitches. So I'm not going to skip 1 but 2, and then continue as normal. That's an option, like so. Or if you don't want to do that, you could work 2 double crochets together. So for example, skipping the stitch and then going to work this double crochet and the next one, going to work them together. And that's also a way of reducing a stitch if you have one too many. And this way you're going to make your border until you get to the other side. And continue until you get to this point. I'm just going to pull this out and work this again, and then I'll show you how to deal with the joining line. I'm to my first joining line. Going to you've just done all your repeats. You have 2 stitches left, so that last one is the second last one you're going to skip, of course. And then on the last stitch, before you get to your joining line, work a double crochet, like so. This is your joining line. You're seeing those 2 loops there are from the join. So you're working a double crochet in the stitch just before the joining line, and then we're going to work a slip stitch on the joining line, and the stitch after, that's going to be this one, you're also going to work a double crochet. And that way you're going, by doing these 3 stitches, you're really integrating this joining line into your blanket. Now to work on this joining line, I'm going to work a slip stitch through the top here of this last slip stitch, or the first one, depending which direction it is. But this is the one where I'm going to work into. If you're having trouble getting into that, you could consider going 1 stitch forward, or picking it here from the back. I really like to take it here, because then I can easily work it into my blanket and into the border. Another thing that's important is don't work this slip stitch too tight, because you're going to be working into it in the next round, and if it's too small you'll be struggling to get your hook into that stitch. So through that stitch there, through the top of the joining line, work a slip stitch. You work a slip stitch there. Then onto the next stitch here, you'll work in the back loop a double crochet again. And these 3 stitches, because they're so nicely close together, they really integrate this joining line into your border. And now you can continue again. So that's chain 1, skipping the next stitch, and a double crochet. Chain 1, skip a stitch, and in the back loop, everything in this round is back loop, double crochet. Chain 1, skip a stitch, back loop, double crochet. You can continue doing this until you get to your next joining line, which is going to be this one here. And here you again work a double crochet on the stitch before. Let me just get my hook out here. You work a double crochet on that stitch before. You work a slip stitch through the top here. So get your hook into that, and because you're using a larger hook, this could be a little tricky maybe. So really punch your hook in there, and sometimes you may need to just help it a little bit. So get your hook through there to connect your joining line. So work a slip stitch, and then in the stitch after the border line, you work in the back loop again. That's going to be that loop. You work a double crochet. So those 3 stitches are always very important, that you do these nice and tidy to really get your border and your joining line really integrated into one another. So continue like this on your border lines, and then I'll see you for the corner, just to go around the corner. Almost to the corner stitch. Still need to do one small repeat more, so I'm skipping a stitch, double crochet, chain one, skipping this last stitch, then we get to the corner stitch, and in that corner stitch, in the back loop, remember everything is back loop, work a double crochet, chain two, and a double crochet, and that there is your corner made. And now you can continue on this edge exactly the same way we've done before. Chain one, skip a stitch, and in the back loop, if I can just get in there, in the back loop, a double crochet. So that's your corner. And continue now all the way around, doing all your joins, and then I'll see you right at the beginning to show you how to treat your last or your first corner. We're almost round. We need to do a few more repeats. Then I'll just show you how to close the first round. Chain one, skipping a stitch, and double crochet. In the next, remember everything is still in the back loop. Chain one, skip a stitch, and work a double crochet, chain one. At this point you have one stitch left before the corner, that last stitch. You're going to skip that stitch. Now you're going to work in the same stitch as where we started. Remember, here you have that first double crochet that we've already made. When we started, we joined with the slip stitch. So in that same position, you make a double crochet, chain two for the corner, and now close to this first stitch you made, this double crochet here, close on that stitch with a slip stitch, like so, and there we go, like so. That completes round one of your border. Round two, we're going to be turning our blanket around, so you're going to have the wrong side facing. So I'm now going to turn the blanket around, and then we can do round two. Round two of the border, I have the back of my blanket facing. As you can see here, the joining lines, you have the back, so make sure your work is backside facing. We're going to start with our first corner. Do a chain one. This is just to get you to the correct height. This is just for turning purposes, nothing else. In the chain two corner space, I'm going to work a double crochet in the space, chain two, and a double crochet in the same space, like so. That's your first corner made. Double crochet, chain two, double crochet. Now we're ready to work our first edge. Chain one, going to skip the double crochet you have here, and in the chain one space work a double crochet. And this you're now going to repeat basically until you're to the other side. With the exception of the joining lines, we need to do just a little different, but in essence, you're going to work a chain one, skipping the double crochets, and then in the chain space from the previous round, you work another double crochet. So this round, everything is just in the stitches, so only round one was back loops. From now on, everything is just in the total stitch, so no stressing about back loops anymore. You can see how fast this goes. So in your chain 1 space, work a double crochet, then a chain 1, and then the next chain 1 space, again a double crochet. And when we get to the joining line, we of course need to do things just a little different. So I just want to show you how to treat your joining line. So I'm now here onto the first joining line. You have here a double crochet, a slip stitch, and a double crochet. Those 3 stitches you have there in a row. I'm going to work a double crochet in the chain space that's before those 3 stitches. Then I do a chain 1. Now you're skipping the double crochet just like you're doing for the rest of this row actually. And on the slip stitch you have here, in that slip stitch you're going to work a double crochet. So in the slip stitch, so that's a double crochet, slip stitch, double crochet. In the slip stitch, right in the middle, but you work a double crochet. And this is the reason why I said don't work those slip stitches too tight, because this is very tight. You're going to be wrestling that stitch to get your double crochet in there. Then again, chain 1, skipping the double crochet, and in the chain 1 space work a double crochet again. And then you've treated your first joining line. So that's skipping the double crochet. In the slip stitch you work a double crochet and then skip the double crochet again. And you're skipping them with chain 1s, of course. And now you can continue and again chain 1, work a double crochet, in chain 1, double crochet in the in the chain 1 spaces, and when you get to the slip stitch you of course work a double crochet in there also on your joining line. And this border is just a very relaxed stitch. You can easily do this while watching TV, especially rounds 2 and 3 and further. They're even more relaxed, because then you don't have to worry about the slip stitches anymore. You can really do this while watching your favorite series, for example. So very relaxing, and it also goes reasonably fast, especially when you start feeling the rhythm of these stitches. Just want to show you the joining line once more, and then you can continue, and I'll show you a corner again, and then you can go all the way around. So I'm onto my next joining line here. In the chain space that's before the joining line I work a double crochet, then the chain 1 again. I have a double crochet, slip stitch, double crochet. The double crochet I'm skipping. In the slip stitch you work, there we go, a double crochet, chain 1, skipping the double crochet again, and in the next chain 1 space work a double crochet. And then you've had your second joining line, and you can continue again. You're going to go like this all the way around. I'll show you another corner just to help you with that also, and then you can go all the way around. So continue, work your joining lines until you get to your next corner. Almost to the corner, just want to show you how to go around the corner, and you're still working a double crochet in every chain space and a chain 1 in between. Chain 1, I have 1 space left before the corner. In that chain 1 space work a double crochet, chain 1. Now you're going to work a new corner in the chain 2 space. So in the chain 2 corner space you have work a double crochet, chain 2, and a double crochet in the same stitch, the same position, like so. And that's a new corner stitch made. And now you can continue exactly you've done before. So chain 1, skipping this double crochet, and in the chain 1 space work your first double crochet on this edge. Chain 1 and the next space. You're going to continue like this and go all the way around. On your joining lines, of course, you're working a double crochet on the slip stitches. For the rest, you're working all your double crochets in the chain 1 spaces or the corner space. Keep attention to your tension, keep paying attention to that. You don't want your work to pull. So if you're noticing that your blanket isn't flat but it wants to pull inwards, just throw it on the floor and just check how it's falling. If you notice that it's pulling, you might want to go up a hook size, because these stitches, all these chain spaces and just this stitch has a tendency to pull. So it's not per se your fault, it's just the stitches. Then do go up a hook size because you don't want that your blanket is finished and it was perfectly flat before you did your border, and after your border it's pulling inwards. So then do go up a hook size if needed. But continue, go all the way around, do all your border stitches of round 2. When you get to the join, treat that in the proper way. Then I'll just show you how to close round 2. So go all the way around and I'll see you right at the end. Almost to the end of row 2, round 2. Got a few more stitches to do. So I'm still doing a double crochet, chain 1. Work the last double crochet in this chain space here before the corner, chain 1, and now we're going to close on the corner itself. I've got a stitch marker here in my first corner. I don't have them in the other 3 because as your blanket gets bigger and your border, or actually your border gets bigger, it can be hard to see exactly which is the starting point. So to prevent me from accidentally missing my starting point, I have a stitch marker in my first corner. I'm going to close on that first double crochet. Remember, you've got double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. You also have that turning chain 1. You're not going to work into that, only in the double crochet itself. Close on there with a slip stitch and go to the chain 2 corner space with the slip stitch. That completes round 2. We're now going to turn the blanket again, so you're going to have the right side facing for round 3. Round 3 of the border, and I have the right side of my work facing, very important. So you can see here, for example, the joining lines facing. So make sure you have the right side of your blanket facing. I'm going to start by making the first half of the corner. I've got the stitch marker in here so that I know exactly where my starting point of this row is. Do a chain 1. This does not count as a stitch. In the chain 2 space, in that same space, work a double crochet. That's half of the corner made. When we come back, we're going to do the second half. Chain 1, skipping the next double crochet. It's going to be this one here. In the chain space, work a double crochet. Chain 1, skip a stitch, and in the chain 1 space, work your next double crochet. And that's it. We're going to continue like this. Go all the way around. When you get to a corner, in the chain 2 corner space, you work a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. And for the rest, it's a great rhythm, working double crochets in all your chain spaces and chain 1s in between. Continue. I'm going to go all the way around, and then I'll see you just for the closing of round 3. Almost to the end of row 3. Just need to do a few more stitches. So doing a chain 1, double crochet in this space, my last double crochet here in that last space before the corner, chain 1. Now we're onto this corner where we started. I've got the stitch marker in here as my starting position. In that space, that chain 2 space, going to work a double crochet, chain 2. Now I'm just going to remove the stitch marker. You're going to close on the single crochet, the double crochet that you started with a slip stitch on that double crochet. And there we go. Yes. I'm going to mark my corner, the chain 2 corner space, because this is the corner where I'm starting my next round. For round 4, again, turn your blanket the other way to have the back facing. Round 4, going to start with a chain 1. This is just to get you to the correct working height. Then in the chain 2 space that we just made, work a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. I'm going to remove the stitch marker and just hook it up to my new corner. So. And now I can continue again. Remember you have the backs of your work facing now. And you're going to do exactly the same you've done before. Chain 1, skipping the double crochet, and in the chain 1 space work a double crochet. Going to go all the way round. When you get to the corner, you work a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. And this is now the point where it really starts getting relaxing, because you can just go all the way around. Find your rhythm to all your stitches, and I'll see you here for the closing of round 4. Almost to the end of round 4. You can see here's my stitch marker again. Need to work a few more double crochets and chain 1s. Last double crochet here in that space. I'm going to finish with a chain 1, and I'm going to close on this first double crochet. Remember, we've got a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. So on that first double crochet there, to close with a slip stitch. There we go. And then also go into the chain 2 space with a slip stitch. That completes round 4. I'm again going to turn my work the other way for round 5. You've now done the first 4 rows of your border, row 1, 2, 3, 4, and for row 5 until 13 you're going to be repeating rounds 3 and 4. So 3 and 4 you're going to repeat them until you have 13 rows. Now what's important is at the end of every round is that you turn your work the other way. One time you'll have the right side facing, once you have the wrong side facing. So keep on turning your work the other way at the end of every round. The reason why you're doing this is because then you're getting this nice effect here with the stitches. Otherwise this becomes all flat and even, and now you have a little bit of this textured effect here. The only difference between round 3 and 4 is the corners, the way you worked your first corner. That's the main difference between the two. For the rest they're the same. So go and work all your stitches, all your corners and all your rounds. So that'll be round 5 to 13. Then your band will be something like this. Go all the way around and then you're done.